How do I make this appear to be bigger? Sorry to trouble you, but I don't know how to do it.
Okay,
How do I
we are now live on YouTube.
Just checking audio to make sure folks can hear me.
Yep.
Can hear you.
This meeting does have a telephone dial-in line. And so I would mention that it appears that Verizon is having internet connectivity issues on the East Coast. If any of us who, like I, who use Verizon for our internet service provider have difficulty staying connected, dialing in by phone may be a way to continue participating if that becomes absolutely necessary.
You have the number for that?
Andrea, I think, or I can deliver it. Andrea, do you want me to send it to everyone or? I can't hear you.
Andrea is muted.
Yes, yes, Max, thank you.
Okay.
It should be in the invitation that in your calendar that Andrea sent.
Okay, you've got 1 minute. $12:30.
Is everybody ready to go?
Do we have the live stream operating?
Yes, we're good.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order. Call this remote meeting of the Washington Metrorail Safety Commission to order. This meeting is being recorded as well as streamed live for the public. To make this meeting as accessible as possible, closed captioning is available. If you are on Zoom, click the closed captioning button to turn the captions on or off. And now we will see if we have a quorum. Ms. Foltz, do we have a quorum today?
Chairman Hart, we do.
And I apologize, I don't, my computer is frozen except for Zoom, and so I don't have a copy of the script in front of me. And Chairman Hart, if you would like, I'll proceed to call the roll.
Yes, please.
Chairman Hart,
Present.
Commissioner Bob, Commissioner Farrar-Dyke,
Present.
Commissioner Hull, I believe people are having trouble connecting. Commissioner Rush,
We just need to bring him in as a panelist. He's just dialed in on the phone, so just one moment until we.
I'll hold up for a moment, thank you.
I think Andrea has to move.
No, he's been promoted. It's
Oh,
just
okay, he's
taking
got it.
1 minute.
Okay.
You want to continue through the roll call list and then come back as needed?
Sure, I'll do that. And just, I did want to note that under the board's rules, the alternate members will only participate if they are necessary for us to reach a quorum in the event that one or both of the full members of the commission is not present. I think given the current connectivity problems that we're having, I will go ahead and call the whole roll. And I think we will have to just be flexible. And as full members are able to join, if we have a member from that jurisdiction, then the alternate commissioner might need to drop off for the purposes of participation as set forth in the compact, but clearly they would still be present in the meeting. And so I'll go ahead and continue to call the roll. I don't see Commissioner Rush yet, but we'll come back. Alternate Commissioner Lobby,
Present.
thank you. Alternate Commissioner Al-Khatib,
Present.
thank you. And alternate Commissioner Wassner.
Present.
And as it currently stands with the participation of our alternate members, we have a quorum.
Do you want to try once again to go over the names again of the commissioners?
So the commissioners who are present right now are Chairman Hart, Commissioner Farrar-Dyke, alternate Lobby, alternate Wassmer, and alternate Al-Khatib. And it looks like Commissioner Hull has been able to join.
Present.
Thank you, Commissioner Hull.
Commissioner Bob is also on.
I'll wait just a moment. I don't see him showing up on my screen yet. So for Commissioners Bob and Rush, I'm calling the roll. Commissioner Bob, if you could please respond if you can hear me. Okay, we'll come back because they are showing up. Commissioner Rush, are you present?
Yeah, I'm present. Allison, I tried to call in just by phone before, and for some reason I could get in, but you couldn't hear me speak, but now I'm able to get back on the video, so.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I can hear you. The phone connection wasn't showing up at all, at least on my screen.
That might be the problem with Commissioner Bob.
let me suggest that we continue. If we have a quorum now, let me suggest that we go ahead, and the next time we have a vote of the commissioners, you call that roll call again, and we'll see if that makeup of the quorum has changed. Would that work,
Well,
Ms. Foltz?
Yes, and we do have a quorum of commissioners at this point, and so the alternates are not necessary to reach the quorum.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Foltz. We will start today with our safety message from WMSC Emergency Management Specialist and Safety Officer, Richard David. Mr. David?
Thank you, Chair Hart. As we welcome the new year, we must continue to do our part in keeping ourselves and others safe in this ongoing pandemic. We are all excited that a vaccine is being rolled out, but it will take time before we reach a large segment of the population and we can have a significant impact on the current high case rates in our region. Be patient and stay vigilant about following basic safety measures, particularly with the new strains of the virus being identified. Wear your face coverings, social distance, limit gatherings, and wash your hands often. Metrorail continues to ask riders to wear their mask in the system. Wmsc asks everyone to stay safe at all times and follow the same measures. It takes all of us to combat this pandemic. So let's have a safe and happy new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. David. We will now move on to the minutes from our last meeting. Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke, the mic is yours.
Happy New Year, everyone. The minutes for November 10th were posted for your review. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? If not, I move approval of the November 10th minutes as circulated. Is there a second?
Second.
See,
Yeah, I
Commissioner
guess.
Hall seconded.
Okay, thank you. I will ask our General Counsel, Allison Foltz, to conduct the roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Chairman Hart,
You approve?
Commissioner Bob, if you can hear us. Commissioner Farrar Dyke,
Approve.
Commissioner Hull,
Approve.
Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Thank you. The minutes are approved.
Thank you, Ms. Foltz. Now, the next section on the agenda is public comments. We provide an opportunity for public comments at each of our meetings, and we will now ask if any members of the public who have joined our Zoom webinar would like to speak. If you would, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and our staff will unmute one person at a time. Each person will have a maximum of 2 minutes, and I will pause now to see if we have any public comments. Ms. Hogan, do we have anyone who has indicated they would like to speak?
No, Chair Hart, I see no hands raised.
Okay, thank you.
You're
I would
welcome.
also remind everyone, including those of you watching on YouTube, that you can always report any concerns through our website, wmsc.gov, through our social media channels like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or by email. Thank you. We will now continue with the next item on the agenda, which is my remarks. We have a very full agenda today, including a number of investigation reports and updates on audits and corrective action plans. This highlights just some of what our hardworking, dedicated staff is accomplishing, even in these challenging times under public health precautions. And I would like to again thank the WMSC staff for their continued efforts and for not missing a single stride. As the commissioners know, just yesterday, the WMSC released a detailed audit report on Metrorail's elevated structure maintenance, inspection, and repair. The audit identifies some significant progress in this area, where Metrorail has faced significant challenges over the past decade, but it also identifies areas where follow through on these changes and other new safety improvements are needed. Among the findings, Metrorail does not have weight ratings for its elevated structures. In addition, a lengthy new manual went into effect without any training for employees. And finally, different departments are not adequately working together. The WMSC has also identified this issue of siloed department operating without adequate coordination across a number of areas of Metrorail, including in Metrorail safety certification process, such as the 6000 series rail car overhaul. We look forward to working with Metrorail as they work to develop and propose corrective action plans to address our elevated structures findings. On another note, I would like to congratulate our esteemed colleague, Alternate Commissioner Victoria Wassner, on her selection to be Deputy Assistant Secretary for Finance and Budget at the U.S. Department of Transportation. This is their gain and our loss because we will lose her because of this, but we certainly wish her the best of continued success in her new position in helping the new administration go where it wants to go. Victoria, we greatly appreciate your contributions here at the WMSC since you joined us this summer, and we will look forward to seeing the results of your dedication at the U.S. Department of Transportation. Dr. Meyer, do you have any opening remarks?
David, mute.
Thank you very mumuch, Max. Sorry about that. I do have some opening remarks, and I will say them with the mute turned off. As you said, Chair Hart, our staff remains hard at work in many areas. Our operations, emergency preparedness, and communications team closely monitored Metrorail's preparations for and operations during the inauguration period. This work included monitoring preparations, radio communications, actual operations and situation reports, and it involved many of our subject matter experts. We've also completed our continued work on a number of audits in recent weeks. Our elevated structures audit we just released includes 12 findings that require Wmata to propose corrective action plans and 1 recommendation that Wmata must consider. The audit finds that Metrorail departments are operating in unacceptable silos that create safety risks. Metro does not have load ratings for its bridges and aerial structures. A new inspection manual was made effective without any training for the employees who must implement it. Other tools and training are also missing. We moved this audit up on our schedule due to safety issues that we identified in a special review of inspection reports related to the D&G junction where blue and orange lines meet near Stadium Armory Station. I would encourage everyone to read the full report for all of the specific details. Metrorail has 45 days from the release of the report to propose corrective action plans. Ms. Samara Singha will provide additional audit and CAP updates later in our meeting. We also continue to work on a number of safety event investigations. Regarding the 2 6000 series train pull-aparts in October and November, the 6000 series cars were taken out of service following the November pull-apart near Glenmont Station. The 6000 series fleet remains out of service, and the WMSC participated in the examination of the coupler assembly in that event and worked with Metrorail to identify preliminary facts related to the event, and we continue to oversee the ongoing investigation. Earlier this month, Metrorail began the process of moving each of the 6000 series rail cars to its Greenbelt yard under a service bulletin that requires specific inspections before each of these sets of cars are moved overnight and at reduced speed. All 6000 series cars should be in the Greenbelt yard within the next few weeks, which will allow Metrorail to work on the cars at one single location when a path forward is confirmed for any necessary replacements and repairs. In addition to investigations into specific safety events, the WMSC also identifies trends and conducts analyses to drive safety change. Following a lengthy period with little substantive progress from Metrorail, our investigations program manager, Adam Quigley, conducted a detailed review of a number of station overrun events and presented his findings to Wmata last month. Following this analysis, Wmata's Safety Department has completed its own detailed review of these events and is currently working with other Metrorail departments to develop methods to reduce the risk of these dangerous events as required by CAP C0015. This CAP is past due for completion based on the schedule Wmata committed to, and we're paying careful attention to this work. Metrorail is also in the process of completing a safety stand down related to red signal overruns, some of which can have similar underlying causes as station overruns. This stand down follows a number of red signal overruns in the last several months, and the red signal overrun that preceded the derailment at Silver Spring Station this summer. Causes or contributing factors for the station or red signal overruns could include a lack of territory familiarization, moving a train too quickly, improper or unclear communication and radio protocol, rushing to move without verifying signal indication and switch position, fatigue or distraction, and moving with zero speed commands. This stand down includes a reminder to Metrorail personnel about the importance of adhering to speed commands, which are used as a layer of protection to reduce the risk of collisions, derailments, and other safety events. The stand down also identifies a number of areas in the rail system with unique signal placement. For example, close to the end of a station platform or on the left side rather than the right side of the tracks. I do have a brief update on our oversight of Metrorail's automatic doors project. As I noted in early fall, the WMSC required more information from Metrorail regarding the safety basis for Metrorail's decision to move forward with a return to automatic doors. The WMSC requested and received a number of documents and responses as recently as the last few weeks related to Metrorail's current auto doors work. The WMSC is continuing discussions with Metro regarding any outstanding potential safety concerns as Wmata determines what its plans are moving forward. Auto doors briefly returned on the red line this month before being suspended again due to what Wmata described as system issues at several stations and the operational changes surrounding the inauguration. Wmata has committed to collecting and analyzing additional data to pinpoint the issues. Wmata is scheduled to provide the WMSC with additional insight this week into any plans they may have for automatic train operation and their future plans for automation and signaling in general. The WMSC will evaluate that information and take appropriate actions to properly carry out our safety oversight responsibilities. On the safety investigations front, the WMSC has ensured a new Wmata practice of collaborating with local first responders to hold emergency response debriefs for events involving a large-scale emergency response. Working with Metro's Chief Safety Officer, we've ensured that these debriefs cover what worked well during emergency response from the perspective of Metro Rail departments and first responders and what can be improved for the future. These debriefs have now occurred following the 2019 Farragut West collision, the Silver Spring derailment this summer that I mentioned, and the two train pull-aparts that I mentioned that occurred this fall. I'd like to highlight another job that our team takes very seriously, and that is providing an additional opportunity for Metrorail employees, contractors, riders, and members of the public to report safety concerns related to the Metrorail system. Our business process specialist, Lahiru Karunaratna, coordinates the tracking of those concerns, and I'd like to ask him to present an overview of our efforts on that front in 2020.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. WMSC staff responded to and follow up as necessary on every safety concern that is provided to the WMSC. This action can include immediately contacting Wmata to address specific concerns, or it can include engaging with the person who submitted the concern to more fully understand the best course of action moving forward. When we do share the concerns with Wmata, we anonymize them if necessary and possible. In year 2020, the WMSC received 15 safety concerns via our safety concerns email, which is safetyconcerns@wmsc.gov, or through our online safety concern form. Each of these concerns has now been tracked, documented, acted upon, resolved, and closed. I would like to provide a couple of examples of safety concerns that we received over the past year. A customer identified incorrect emergency exit signage on the platform at the Reagan National Airport station. WMSC experts reviewed the submission and quickly confirmed that the signage needed to be fixed. Since the center track is not an emergency exit pathway, we raised the issue with the fire marshal, and the signs were corrected within 24 hours to read authorized personnel only. Just last week, a customer informed us that the Columbia Heights station's southbound track bed lighting was out. WMSC informed Wmata low voltage power plant and safe departments. They have sent a crew to investigate this issue. Thank you. Now I hand it back to Dr. Meyer.
Thank you very much. We do look forward to continuing this important safety function. I'll just mention that internally, our staff convened earlier this month for a 2-day retreat focused on our overall goals, plans, and expectations for this calendar year. This included a discussion with Chairman Hart, a focus on our vision and areas where we can grow, planning for the future, and our internal policy reviews. Our staff also continue to be involved in important training programs through agencies such as the NTSB and the FTA. For example, many of our staff recently took the NTSB's cognitive interviewing course, which was offered via remote learning. I also have 2 WMSC staff announcements. First, Adam Quigley, who joined us as a program specialist almost a year ago, has been promoted to Investigations Program Manager. And Richard David, who joined us as a program specialist around the same time, is now serving as our Emergency Management Specialist. And Richard also serves as the WMSC Safety Officer. So thank you and congratulations to those 2 important staff members. We also have a job posting for an IT manager open, an IT program manager open through Sunday, and information on that position and how to apply is available on our website, wmsc.gov. Chair Hart, that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Are there any questions for Dr. Meyer from any of the commissioners? I'd be interested to know in the elevated structures audit, are we saying they don't know today what their bridges can carry, or that they never knew from day one what those bridges could carry?
Well, I'll ask appropriate staff to comment, but the short answer is at least as we sit during the period audited, Metro was not able to provide us with load ratings for its structures. Ms. Samara Singh, would you like to comment further or pass it along to anyone else for comment?
Dr. Meyer, that is the correct characterization. There is a period within which we include audit materials and audit records. And based on that, for the current time frame, going back 2 years, back to 2018, we have determined that there have not been load ratings for the structures, for the elevated structures that were part of the elevated structures audit.
Okay, thank you. And on the 6,000 cars that you're moving to have them all in the centrally located to do that work together, do we have any idea yet what that work will entail? What it will take to stop the uncoupling problem?
I would also pass that along to Ms. Samara Singha or possibly our vehicles SME, Mr. Lopez.
Chair Hart, I will ask Manuel Lopez, subject matter expert for vehicles, to provide any additional details. As a contextual piece of information, we conduct through Manuel Lopez's leadership bi-weekly meetings with the car engineering and car maintenance departments within Vomata to have an ongoing understanding on just the types of item that you just raised about the 6000 series rail car coupler mechanism of repair/replacement. So Manuel, can you provide any additional details you might have gathered today? You had one of your bi-weekly meetings today. If you can briefly describe any new information, if you do have any.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Basically, right. Wmsc is inspecting the developer service bulletin. They're inspecting the rail cars before they're moved to Greenbelt, and currently they have moved a few cars to Greenbelt. The intent is to revise the overhaul procedure with Delner, the OEM, on site. And after they overhaul the procedure, they're going to do a dry run and making sure that they follow all the steps. One of the deficiencies they have found that they were not using the correct special tools. So anyway, they're going in the right direction. We feel comfortable that they're doing the right thing. They actually have the OEM on board. They're going to do a dry run. That's the right thing to do. They're going to move the cars to a single location, so you don't have different players involved. You have the same guys going through the process. So so far things are moving in the right direction. Need anything else?
No, thank you. That's very helpful. I appreciate that. Do any of the other commissioners have any questions for Dr. Meyer on his opening comments? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to safety event investigations. I'll first turn to Investigations Program Manager Adam Quigley, and congratulations, Mr. Quigley, for being promoted to Investigations Program Manager. The mic is yours.
Thank you, Chair Hart. We have 8 investigation reports on the agenda today. Work is still continuing on some of the more notable investigations, including this summer's derailment at Silver Spring Station, along with the 2 train pull parts that occurred in the fall. We do expect to be prepared to present several of these reports to you over the coming months. Also, the Metrorail Safety Department has also committed to improvements to its investigation report process and internal safety recommendation and tracking process. And I look forward to working closely with their new Deputy Chief for Investigations. Today, our vehicle subject matter expert, Manuel Lopez, track and structures expert, Jermaine Walker, and operations expert, Bruce Walker, will each be presenting investigation reports, and I will be presenting the last of the reports for you today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Quigley. Mr. Lopez, would you please begin with your report, your first report?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation. Hold a second, I'm having. Investigation W0053 involves an improper door operation at Largo Town Center Station on August 25, 2020. The doors opened on the wrong side of the train after passengers had gotten off and the train had gone out of service. The doors open push button was stuck in the on position in what had been the trailing car as the train entered the station. When the new train operator boarded the end of the train to take the car back to New Carrollton Yard, keying up the train led to the doors opening on the wrong side around 7:44 a.m. This investigation is based on interviews, CCTV, radio, data recordings, and other sources. Because this was a 3000 series car, there was no in-cab video. A different train operator who had brought the train out of the yard had reported difficulty closing the doors before the train went into service about 2 hours earlier. Despite the reported problem closing the doors, the terminal supervisor directed the train operator to go into service and warned that the train was going to depart late. The door control panel was further damaged as the train operator serviced the first few stations on the line. The train operator reported this damage to the Rail Operations Control Center, and a car maintenance road mechanic boarded the train at Stadium Armory Station. The mechanic was relieved by another at Metro Center, and the train operated to Franconia Springfield Station. The mechanic did not work on the panel while the train was in service to Franconia Springfield. The mechanic on board at Franconia Springfield reported that the parts were not available to fix the broken panel and buttons, and supervisors directed the train operator to go back to Largo Town Center with the affected cab as a trailing car. No mechanic was on board the train as he made his way back to Largo Town Center, and it is not clear what, if any, communications occurred regarding the specifics of the damage. It was clear that the train will go out of service at Largo Town Center and then be taken to the yard. Rail supervisor took over operation of the train before it reached Largo. A different yard operator conducted a walkthrough of the train to ensure it was clear of passengers, and another operator who had been directed only to take the train to the yard is the one who keyed up the train. The operator and the supervisor only identified the damaged door control panel after the doors opened on the wrong side. In response to this event, Metrorail will review opportunities to improve procedures for removing trains from service that have door-related problems. Rail transportation personnel also review a 2019 operation notice on reporting and communication safety issues. This completes this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Are there any questions from the commissioners for Mr. Lopez? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt investigation report Whiskey 0053?
So
move.
Thank you. I hear a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
So I have Commissioner Rush moving and Commissioner Hull seconding.
Excellent. I will now ask General Counsel Foltz to conduct our recorded vote.
Thank you, Chairman Hart.
Mhm.
Chairman Hart,
Approved.
Commissioner Bob, Commissioner Bob, I can't hear you. If you approve, if you could just raise your hand. Thank you. Commissioner Farrar Dyke,
Approved.
Commissioner Hull,
Approve.
and Commissioner Rush.
approve.
Thank you. The report is approved.
Thank you, Ms. Foltz. We will now move on to our next investigation report. Mr. Jermaine Walker, Whiskey 0054.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0054 involves a derailment in the Greenbelt Yard on July 30th, 2020 at around 10:12 in the PM. Derailment of a flat car occurred at a hand-thrown switch that had been added to the storage tracks in the yard. The investigation found safety issues with the switch that I will explain in a moment. An equipment operator and flagman were loading material on a flat car for radio work that was planned during an upcoming shutdown. The equipment operator on the prime mover pulled the flat car in a straight through move through the switch. About 2 minutes later, the equipment operator on the prime mover pushed the flat car back through the switch area. As the flat car moved back through the switch area, the flat car derailed. There were a number of delays associated with reporting the derailment. The IRPG equipment operator notified a departmental supervisor of the derailment, but Metrorail rules do not currently require a derailment in this area of a yard to be reported to the interlocking operator or the RIC. The derailment was reported to the Maintenance Operations Center in the Rocc approximately 20 minutes after it occurred. The interlocking operator, who was responsible for yard operations, only learned of the derailment approximately 26 minutes after it occurred when a Rocc assistant superintendent called to ask for more information. The interlocking operator did not reach the work crew on the radio, so the interlocking operator had to leave the tower to determine what happened. A roadway worker in charge was also unaware of the derailment. Based on audio recordings and a field test, there were no problems with radio communications in the area. The investigation into this event identified problems with the hand-thrown switch involved in this event and 2 similar switches nearby. These switches were installed about 4 years ago on the storage tracks, which are not integrated into the electronic signaling system. The tracks were installed to create more storage space for rail maintenance vehicles. The investigation uncovered that the switches did not have appropriate switch stands, were not included in regular preventive maintenance or inspections, and were not shown on yard maps. The switch where the derailment occurred was also missing 1 house top bolt, 3 bolts at the heel block, 1 pin, and had 1 loose joint bar. 1 tie a foot in front of the frog had significantly deteriorated. Other issues that could have potentially contributed to this derailment include the work crew not properly placing lights on the flat car for night work. Key concerns raised in this derailment are related to the switches. Corrective actions address the inappropriate switch stands, a lack of preventive maintenance and inspection, and a lack of awareness that the switches even existed. Metrorail says it has now accounted for all the switches in its regular maintenance and inspection schedule, and has replaced the switch stands on the 3 switches identified in the Greenbelt Yard. Further, Metrorail indicates that all hand-thrown switches have been inspected and are part of the preventive maintenance inspection schedule. The Metrorail Safety Department is conducting its own verification to ensure that all such hand-thrown switches and all other Metrorail yards have been inspected quarterly. Thank you. That completes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Walker?
Hey, I apologize, Chair Hart, but the volume kind of went out as you was posing your question. Can you try that again for me, please?
Sure. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Walker? Is that better?
Yeah, sorry about that. I something little issue with my audio.
Not to worry. Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to adopt investigation report whiskey 0054?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Actually, at this point, because we have a quorum among the commissioners, the alternates are not included within the quorum. So we'll need a commissioner to second.
Second.
Commissioner Hall, thank you.
Excellent. I will now ask General Counsel Fultz to conduct our recorded vote.
Very good. Commissioner Hart,
Approved.
Commissioner Bob. Thank you. Commissioner Farrar-Dyke,
Approve.
Commissioner Hull,
Approve.
and Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Thank you. The report is approved.
Thank you, Ms. Fultz. We will now move on to our next investigation report. Mr. Lopez, the floor is yours for whiskey 0055.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Okay. Investigation W0055 involves improper operation in the New Carrollton rail yard, resulting in an unintended coupling. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. An unintended coupling when one train rolled backwards into another. On August 11th, a car maintenance technician was conducting a daily inspection on a 4-car 7000 series consist. The technician placed the master control in coast during 2 brake pressure tests. During each brake-off test, the consist rolled backwards about 6 inches due to the slight grade of the track. Daily inspection procedures state that the master controller may not be placed in coast or a point of power during break-off tests on the 2000, 3000, and 6000 series car, but does not state the same requirement for the 7000 series car. This demonstrates that the procedure is insufficient and it must be revised. The investigation found that car maintenance supervision, the assistant superintendent, and the technician involved were not aware of the written procedures for the older rail cars. This shows that Metrorail did not effectively communicate with or train employees on these procedures. The second time the consist rolled back, it hit and coupled with a 3000 series consist that was stored near the bump post. Following this improper investigation and unintended coupling, car maintenance employee requested and the interlocking operator directed that the train operator uncouple and move the trains. The train operator correctly refused to manipulate the scene of a safety event, and the event was eventually properly reported. This is another example of a non-compliance or potential non-compliance with SOP 800-01. The Wmsc finding issued on October 20th after the October 9th red line pull apart requires Metrorail to implement a corrective action plan that will ensure the integrity of all investigations by ensuring the scene of an event and all evidence is preserved. I should note that prior to the start of the daily inspections in this event, the same train operator had stored the 7000 series constant approximately 13 inches from the 3000 series constant rather than the 2 feet that are required by rule. This contributed to this improper operation leading to an undesired coupling. In response to this event, car maintenance conducted a safety briefing to the new Carrollton yard on September 9th that specifically focused on the importance of following written procedures. Metrorail has also identified the need for broader lessons learned documents for car maintenance and for rail operations. The rail operations document is meant to focus on rail car storage rules, the importance of safety briefing for train operator, and the need to identify and be aware of track grade. This completes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Lopez? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt investigation report Whiskey 0055?
So move.
Second.
Hall? And Commissioner Rush seconds.
Okay, thank you. I will now ask General Counsel Allison Fultz to conduct our recorded vote.
Thank you. Commissioner Chair Hart.
Approved.
Commissioner Bob. Thank you. You've raised your hand. Commissioner Farrar Dyke.
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Hull
Approve.
and Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Thank you very much. Report W0035 is adopted and accepted.
You said 0035, you meant 0055, I believe.
Yes, that's correct. 0055.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fultz. We will now move on to our next investigation report by Mr. Bruce Walker. Mr. Walker, the floor is yours.
W0056 is one of 4 investigation reports today related to improper roadway worker protection. Investigation Whiskey 0056 involves an improper roadway worker protection event at the Fort Totten station on August 22nd, 2020. A construction inspector reported to the station to meet a work crew that was several hours into a job replacing standpipes on the green and yellow line tracks. The inspector used his cell phone rather than a radio to contact the crew, get directions to the work crew's location, and attempt to get permission to access the roadway to meet the crew. The inspector, despite holding the highest level of roadway worker protection training, which is level 4, stated that they did not know that Fort Totten is a transfer station. The red line platform is located on the upper level, while the green and yellow line platform is on the lower level. The work crew was near the lower level platform, but the inspector went to the upper level or red line platform. The inspector then left the platform and entered the red line roadway and walked approximately 200 feet without any protection in place. The inspector did not use the radio, did not conduct a radio check, and then used a cell phone to contact the work crew after noticing that chain marker signs showed that they were on the Bravo or red line rather than the Echo or green line. The inspector identified this around the time that a train approached the area. The inspector gave a proceed signal to the train operator, but the train operator correctly identified that the inspector did not have permission to be on the roadway and reported the encounter to the Rail Operations Control Center. The ROCC directed the train operator to have the inspector board the train, and the inspector was removed from service. The work crew stopped work to review this event. In interviews conducted as part of the investigation, the inspector stated that this was not the only time that they had used the cell phone to communicate with the work crew, which is contrary to Metrorail rules. The roadway worker in charge also indicated that instructions provided over the cell phone, apparently by another employee, were not clear. This event was the result of communications breakdowns, insufficient system familiarization, and a general acceptance of non-adherence to written Metrorail rules, procedures, or processes. Wmata should consider providing a sufficient level of territory familiarization for employees, and Wmata also needs to ensure that its culture supports following written procedures. That completes this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. I'm just curious about the cell phone rule. Is that because they want to make sure they want to use the radio so that everybody who needs to hear it hears it, or what's the reason for the radio versus cell phone rule? Do you know?
There is, make sure I'm not muted. The cell phone or electronic device policy is very, very specific. Phones are not to be used on the roadway other than certain, for certain procedures. For taking pictures, they are to be used in an emergency. If a person is to utilize or use the phone on the roadway, they are to be in a place of safety and not doing any work. So when you're in the process of doing inspecting work, it does not allow for the use of a cell phone. Radios are required.
Okay, thank you.
The rule actually serves multiple purposes. It tries to prevent distraction with particularly a smartphone, and it also tries to encourage at least I believe this is an important function of the rule. It tries to encourage party line communications that occur on the radio where everyone on the frequency can hear it and where those transmissions are actually recorded as well.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from any of the other commissioners for Mr. Walker? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to adopt investigation report Whiskey 0056?
So moved.
So approved.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Well, assuming Robert moved, I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I will now ask General Counsel Foltz to conduct our recorded vote.
Very good. Chairman Hart,
Approved?
Commissioner Bob,
Approved.
thank you. Commissioner Farrar-Dyke,
Approve.
Commissioner Hull,
Approve.
and Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Thank you very much. Report W0056 is approved.
Thank you, Ms. Foltz. Mr. Walker, would you continue with the next report, Whiskey 0057?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0057 involves improper roadway protection event on the red line between Fort Totten and Tacoma Station that occurred just after 11 a.m. on August 27th, 2020. A track inspection team made up of a Metrorail employee and a contractor transversed a hotspot without fall time protection. Fall time is when the Rail Operations Control Center controller stops train traffic in a particular area, establishes red signals, and takes other steps in the train control system to provide additional layers of protection for the workers. A hotspot is a segment of track with no clearance, limited view, and other conditions that make it unsafe to occupy without fall time or some other higher level of protection. The track inspection team had first properly requested and were granted fall time for a hotspot from chain marker Bravo 1 350 plus 00 to Bravo 1 339 plus 00. Then, before reaching the next hotspot about 1,400 feet further down the tracks, they requested fall time for that area between Bravo 1 325 plus 00 and Bravo 1 305 plus 00. The Rail Operations Control Center directed the inspection team to stand clear as a revenue train passed that location. There was no further radio communications, but the inspection crew later said that they assumed that they had fall time protection after the train passed their location. The crew entered the roadway and began walking through the hotspot that required fall time in that location. Before they reached the end of the hotspot, a train approached their location. At that time, they attempted to move to a place of safety, but had not reached the end of the hotspot. The inspection crew reported over the radio that they were relinquishing fall time at Bravo 1 308 plus 00. However, they had never had fall time at that location, and that location is 300 feet short of the end of the hotspot. At that point, the Rail Operations Control Center identified that the inspection team had moved into the hotspot without any protection in place, and that the inspection team was then removed from service. The RIC and the contractor track inspector both stated in interviews that they were not paying attention while on the roadway. The track inspector specifically noted that they were paying attention to the radio and assumed that they had fall time protection. So communication breakdowns, efficiency pressures, and an apparent acceptance for non-adherence to written procedures contributed to this event. The investigation suggests that Metrorail has allowed procedures to be ignored, including inspection teams taking it upon themselves to determine that they have adequate time to clear a hotspot based on current headways. This is dangerous and suggests that Wmata must place a renewed focus on safety promotion and safety insurance efforts to ensure that workers understand safety rules and that they properly implement those rules. The RIC was sent for retraining on roadway worker protection level 4, and Track and Structure developed a lessons learned based on this event. That completes this investigation. Thank you, Chair Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Do any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Walker?
Before we move on, if I could ask Mr. Walker a question.
Yes, please.
Bruce, you didn't hear this question earlier, but in many of our investigations, we use the term taken out of service as part of the initial investigation activities. Could you describe a little bit about what that means within Metrorail when an employee is taken out of service? What's that mean and what happens?
So when a safety event occurs, the employees that are directly involved or possibly indirectly involved are taken out of service, and the investigation then proceeds. When they are taken out of service, they are, depending on, but typically they are taken down for a drug testing to make sure or to eliminate that as a causal factor. But more importantly, all of the participants involved are interviewed by SAFE, and the WMSC participates in most of, if not all of the investigations so that we can reach a causal factor to hopefully not have this happen again. So when they're taken out of service, they are interviewed, investigated. There is a drug testing put in place. That is a government requirement to eliminate that as a contributing factor. Does that answer your question, Dr. Meyer?
I think it does. Would you consider that to be more of a disciplinary step or an investigative step?
That is an investigative step. So when the investigation, when they're taken out of service, they are then immediately sent for the DOT drug testing. That's just a requirement. And then they are scheduled for an interview so that the determination and the cause of the incident can be uncovered, and then Metro can hopefully go forward and learn and not have that issue happen again. There is a disciplinary that is possible, but that is outside of this taken out of service. If they do something that requires that, they will be disciplined, but that's outside of the investigation process.
So thank you for that explanation, and thank you for the question, Dr. Meyer. Does taking out of service only apply to people on scene, or does it apply to people not necessarily on scene, like in the Rail Operations Control Center?
It involves anybody that may have contributed or played a part in the incident, accident, or whatever the issue is. So it could be just the roadway personnel, and it could also go back to the control center as well if they did something that contributed to the event. So any personnel that had any involvement would be taken out of service and interviewed to get to the bottom or the causal factor to hopefully stop this from occurring again.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from the commissioners for Mr. Walker? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt investigation report whiskey 0057?
So move.
Commissioner Hull?
Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Hall. Is there a second?
Second.
And Commissioner Rush. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now ask General Counsel Fultz to conduct our recorded vote.
Chairman Hart.
Approve.
Commissioner Bob. He has raised his hand. Commissioner Farrar-Dyke.
Approve.
Commissioner Hull.
Approve.
And Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Thank you. Report W0057 is approved.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fultz. We will now ask Mr. Walker to present our next investigation report. Mr. Walker, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Hart. So moving on, investigation whiskey 0058 examines an improper roadway worker protection event outside of the Silver Spring Tiebreaker Station number 2 on August 29, 2020. A traction power maintenance technician executing an overnight red tag outage entered the roadway without any protection in place to hot stick and confirm that third rail power had been de-energized. So during a red tag outage, a circuit breaker is physically removed from the circuit and a red tag is issued to implement a lockout tagout procedure. This involves coordination among maintenance operations, rail operations control center, and the work crew that is on site. Once the circuit breaker is removed, de-energizing the third rail, workers must get permission to enter the roadway to use a hot stick to verify that power is down and de-energized. The crew had racked out the breaker, but the technician did not request file time from the rail controller. The technician had spoken to the maintenance operations center on the phone, which had directed the technician to go to the tracks. Proper procedure requires a separate communication with the Rail Operations Control Center to request and be granted file time. The technicians said in an interview that they assumed that they had file time because that is the normal nightly procedure. The roadway worker in charge was not aware that the technician had gone to the roadway. The RIC was still in the tiebreaker station briefing the contractors on the planned power cable replacement work for that evening. Part of the communication issues related to the fact that the technician's radio was on a different channel than the RIC's radio. The technician's radio was on the MOC Ops number 1, while the RIC's radio was on ROCC Ops 1. This safety event was identified because the rail controller called the MOC desk to inform them that the crew had not hot sticked the scheduled red tag outage. The MOC provided the chain markers of the hot sticking that had been provided by the technician that was on scene. The Rail Operations Control Center stated that file time had not been requested. The technician then spoke with the MOC desk, and the technician was later removed from service. In response to this event, the Traction Power Maintenance Department developed a lessons learned document focused on requesting file time and roadway access. The Traction Power technician was also assigned to an RWP refresher training. This completes this presentation. Thank you, Chair Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Are there any questions for any of the commissioners, for Mr. Walker? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt investigation report Whiskey 0058?
So moved.
Commissioner Rush, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Hall. Thank you. I will now ask General Counsel Fultz to conduct our recorded vote.
Thank you. Chairman Hart.
Approved.
Commissioner Bob.
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Farrar-Dyke.
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Hull
Approve.
and Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Thank you. Report W0058 is approved.
Thank you, Ms. Fultz. We will now move on to our next investigation report, Whiskey 0059. Mr. Walker.
Thank you again, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0059 examined an improper roadway worker protection event at Tyson's Corner Station on September 3rd, 2020. This event includes a worker who stated afterwards that they were scared to use the good faith challenge process due to fear of retaliation. A system maintenance and low voltage power crew assigned to work on platform edge lights improperly downgraded their planned form of protection with the approval of the Rail Operations Control Center. This put the crew at risk. The work was originally scheduled with exclusive track occupancy or ETO protection and a supervisory power outage. When the rail controller asked the work crew to hot stick and confirm that third rail power was down or de-energized, the roadway worker in charge downgraded the protection request to file time with no power outage and without a proper ETO work zone set up. The investigation suggests that the crew did not have the proper work zone equipment. Two members of the crew also did not wear their hard hats, which are required. The certified controller operating as an on-the-job or OJT training instructor and the student radio controller allowed the reduced form or reduction in protection at the work location. In an interview, the RIC said that there was not much work to do and there was no potential for the workers to contact the third rail, so the reduced protection was acceptable. This is not accurate. The roadway worker protection rules exist because there are risks anytime the workers access the roadway. One aspect of RWP rules is the good faith challenge. This states that Metrorail will guarantee each worker the right to challenge, in good faith, the effectiveness of roadway worker protections at their location. In a post-event interview, the electrician stated that they were scared to raise a good faith challenge due to a fear of retaliation. The electrician stated that they just accept the risk and do not put their jobs on the line by making a good faith challenge. The entire point of the good faith challenge is to save lives through a non-punitive reporting culture. Even as the PTAS, the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan's Safety Promotion practices are enhanced and rolled out, existing plans must be followed and strengthened to ensure that safety comes first. That completes this presentation. Thank you, Chair Hart and Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. So tell me, what can we do about the fear of retaliation?
So for this report, and as well as everything that I've talked about so far, all of the recommendations that were made by Wmata have been enacted. So a lessons learned was created, emphasized on roadway worker protection. And they also did a lessons learned on setting up the work area. With SMS coming forward, employees feeling comfortable reporting is a part of the SMS process, and we just need to make sure that employees know how to report and feel comfortable, and let them know that if retaliation happens, that they do have avenues to pursue if they feel that they're being retaliated based on reporting a safety concern.
Did you get any sense that retaliation had occurred before, or what was did you get a sense on that?
In this event, we did not get a sense of that, but there is an underlying, some employees sometimes feel concerned that they will be retaliated with directly and indirectly, indirectly being that they may not be able to get as much overtime as they were getting before and things like that. But so we still have to put forth an effort to let all employees know that they have to report, and it's that their life and the lives of others, if they feel unsafe, they need to do a good faith challenge so that no one gets hurt.
Thank you. This sounds like something we need to keep an eye on to see, has it been remedied, or is it still a problem out there? Because that, when people are afraid to talk, then that indicates a much deeper issue. So we need to keep our eye on that.
Absolutely.
Do any other commissioners have any questions for Mr. Walker?
Chairman Hart, I have one question on this particular investigation.
Yes, please.
That's when he talks about retaliation, is he talking about Washington Metro management, his peers, his colleagues? Was there any indication on where the retaliation would come from?
It's a great question. Retaliation can come from all of the different places that you spoke of. As I mentioned before, retaliation can be that the employees push the employee to the side. In interviews and conversations that I've had, employees are told to sit down and not participate in the work activities. Retaliation could be that they are no longer afforded the opportunity for overtime. So it kind of manifests in different ways and from different places. So sometimes there's a feeling that if I say something that I might be frowned upon by others that are just trying to do the work. And so it's something that we have to keep an eye on. And when we interact with employees, that they feel comfortable bringing that up to us. It's just something that we definitely, as Chairman Hart said, need to keep a close attention to.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions from any commissioners for Mr. Walker? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to adopt investigation report Whiskey 0059?
So moved.
Commissioner Rush.
Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Russ. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Bob. Oh, now ask General Counsel Fultz to conduct our recorded vote.
Thank you. Commissioner Hart.
Approve.
Commissioner Bob.
Approved.
Commissioner Farrar-Dyke.
Approve.
Commissioner Hull.
Approved.
And Commissioner Rush. Wonderful. Thank you. Report W0059 is approved.
Thank you, Ms. Fultz. We will now move on to the final investigation report on our agenda today. Mr. Quigley. Mr. Quigley, the floor is yours for Whiskey 0060.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0060 involves a June 6, 2020 smoke event linked to an arc and insulator near Capitol Heights Station. In this event, there were multiple instances where Wmata personnel across multiple departments did not follow emergency procedures. An emergency response team initiated a conflict with firefighters, and there were a number of communication lapses. The first of these was at 18:07 or 6:07 p.m. when the station manager reported smoke at Capitol Heights to the Rail Operations Information Center, or ROIC. A ROIC specialist directed the station manager to investigate further. Neither the ROIC specialist who took the first call nor the other ROIC specialist who later interacted with the station manager on the radio called the fire department. Instead, the station manager was asked several times for more than 10 minutes whether it really was smoke or might instead be brake dust, and trains were allowed to continue running. A rail controller asked a train operator whether that operator had seen brake dust, but the transmission did not come through clearly to the operator of train 434. A ROIC specialist who interacted with the station manager on the radio said in post-event interviews that they are taught to avoid the use of the word smoke. For clear safety reasons, if there is a report of smoke, Metrorail is required to implement its emergency procedures, which puts safety first. In this case, the Rocc only called first responders when the utility assistant superintendent on duty overheard the radio conversation between the ROIC specialist and the station manager. This call was made 7 minutes after the station manager first reported the smoke. Another train operator was directed to use an out-of-service train to conduct an inspection, but the train operator did not follow speed restriction rules for such inspections and could not stop in time of the arcing insulator. The train operator reported the fire starting, but had to reverse ends of the train to identify the location out of the back windows. Just after the train overshot the location, about 1,250 feet outside of Capitol Heights Station, the station manager reported dark smoke entering the station. The fire department entered the station a minute later, and the station manager only then evacuated customers from the station. Wmsc did not properly communicate with the fire department on scene or in the Rail Operations Control Center. At Capitol Heights Station, Wmsc employees, including Metro Transit police officers and the Rail Emergency Response Team, ERT, did not establish unified command with the incident commander. Firefighters were on the roadway, placing warning strobe alarm devices, WSADs, as a safety measure after the third rail power was de-energized. But the transit police officer on the platform was not in the location with the firefighters as required by Metrorail's emergency response procedure. The first ERT member on the platform initiated a conflict with the firefighters who were on the roadway. Specifically, ERT moved toward restoring power without the coordination with the incident commander. The incident commander reported over the fire department radio that ERT had put them in a bad position. This conflict also extended the emergency by at least 20 minutes due to the additional time required to verify it was safe to restore power. In the Rail Operations Control Center, the superintendent was required to provide frequent updates to upper level management on the phone, which detracted from the superintendent's ability to perform their other duties. The superintendent did not provide all information, included information provided by the fire liaison to the assistant superintendent or Rocc controllers. The utility assistant superintendent is a controller who sometimes fills in as an assistant superintendent. This particular utility assistant superintendent was very new to the role and had no formal documented training on it. The Rocc also did not assign an on-scene commander at Capitol Heights for more than an hour. Although it was clear at the time of the event that several Rocc employees may have played a role, none were removed from service for post-incident testing as required. After the first arcing insulator was identified and removed, a second arcing insulator was identified that also had to be removed. This event demonstrates the importance of taking additional steps to keep water out of tunnels to prevent smoke and fire events like arcing insulators and to prevent rapid infrastructure deterioration. Metrorail's initial investigation did not identify some important aspects of this event that the Wmsc identified in our own review. These issues have been incorporated into the presentation and the report. This event occurred in June prior to the conclusion of our Rocc audit. Some aspects of this event were incorporated into the audit findings released in September. The audit findings require Metrorail to make several safety changes in the Rail Operations Control Center that are relevant to improving emergency response. These include improved training, additional emergency exercise experience, improved fire and smoke procedures, revision of checklists, improved communication between the fire liaison and controllers, proper staffing of the fire liaison position, and the proper removal of service of Rocc personnel for post-event testing. The Rocc audit also identified staffing, leadership, and workload concerns in the Rocc. Metrorail has proposed addressing this in part by establishing an emergency management team to handle emergency events. That completes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quigley. I guess I'd be curious to know if you have any sense, this may not be a fair question, but do you have any sense of whether the fear of the use of the word smoke has been remedied at all by this event?
We have not seen anything like this since June 6th.
Okay, because it seems like after several smoke events that were serious enough that the word smoke should really raise some alarms, and then the fear of using the word smoke, I guess, doesn't raise those alarms. So I'm hoping we won't see that anymore, but I just wondered if this event helped to move that needle.
I believe it did, sir.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any questions from any of the other commissioners for Mr. Quigley?
Chairman Hart?
Yes, please.
Just an observation. They talk about brake dust. There's no really such thing as brake dust that basically clouds one's vision. What it is, it's burning brake pads. So you're talking about smoke either way, just a different way of conveying it. And I thought it was kind of interesting that brake pads on fire are different than fires from other sources because they both result in smoke.
That's a good point, and it highlights the fear of the use of the specific word smoke, I guess, doesn't it? Any other questions for any of the commissioners, for Mr. Quigley? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to adopt investigation report Whiskey 0060?
So move.
Commissioner Rocc, is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Rush, thank you.
Thank you. I will now ask General Counsel Fultz to conduct our recorded vote.
Thank you. Chairman Hart.
Approved.
Commissioner Bob. Thank you. Commissioner Farrar-Dyke.
Approve.
Commissioner Hull.
Approve.
And Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Thank you. Report W0060 is approved.
Thank you, Ms. Fultz. We will now take up the next item on the agenda, which is corrective action plans. Ms. Samara Singha, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Hart. First, I would like to provide an update on where Vomata stands in developing acceptable corrective action plans related to the Rail Operations Control Center, or ROCC audit that was published in September 2020. Following significant feedback and many conversations, the WMSC has approved 20 out of the 21 caps for implementation. As the audit detailed, Vomata had not made substantive progress in many of these areas over several years, so recovering through these caps will not be a quick task either. Several of these ROCC caps are scheduled to take years to fully implement. Newly approved caps include a comprehensive assessment of the overall functions, duties, processes within the Rail Operations Control Center, the appropriate scaling of responsibilities based on expectations, workload training and qualifications of each group of personnel within the ROCC, and then finally, based on all these considerations, concluding the staffing needs at the Rail Operations Control Center. There are several corrective action plans that are geared towards ensuring that the enormous effort and time placed into recruiting and training controllers is continuously improved. This is intended also to address the high turnover or attrition of controllers by making the control center a workplace that is supportive and fulfilling. The majority of the ROCC CAPs are integrated and interconnected to each other. Therefore, the success of one CAP inherently is tied to the success of several others. There are specific interim steps that Metrorail has proposed to reach each of these goals and verify implementation. The one remaining proposed ROCC CAP is undergoing what may be the final revisions from Vomata right now and will soon be most likely approved by the WMSC for implementation. Regarding the separate finding issued in October of 2020 relating to the integrity of safety event investigations, the WMSC has approved Metrorail's corrective action plan for implementation. This finding was issued as a result of Metrorail's actions following the October train pull-apart near Union Station that did not follow the steps required for evidentiary chain of custody and testing. Initial steps are underway now to improve the integrity of investigative process by improving Metrorail's investigation standard operating procedure and by informing Metrorail personnel and contractors about their responsibilities to an investigation. Additional training is planned in the future once the procedure has been revised. I can also report that the WMSC has recently closed an additional 5 CAPs. These include changes to the approach Metrorail takes to collecting, synthesizing, analyzing, and acting upon performance data tied to its assets and systems, such as track infrastructure and train control systems. These CAPs collectively promote the use of such data to enable Metro to improve its inspections and maintenance practices and to inform decision-making regarding future acquisitions of assets and how they go about designing their infrastructure. This approach also helps Metro know what is working and what is not working and to look for better solutions. This way, Metrorail proactively identifies areas of concern through continuous data gathering and pattern analysis, rather than waiting until a catastrophic failure occurs to do so. The closed CAPs also include Metrorail meeting the requirement of updating the track inspection and maintenance instructions, which was a deficiency identified during the 2020 WMSC track maintenance and associated training audit. And finally, the WMSC has also now closed a CAP that involved upgrading all of the visors in the train operator's cab on the 7000 series rail cars to ensure that these visor designs do not allow train operators to block the cameras on board the cabs. Metrorail has replaced these visors so that they can still properly assist the train operators while not improperly blocking the inward-facing cab cameras. That concludes my report, Chairman Hart.
Thank you, Ms. Samar-Singh. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Ms. Samar-Singh? I just want to congratulate you and your staff for all of the challenging issues that you're dealing with, and obviously you're not encountering a difficult and combative Wmata. They're eager to move in the direction we're trying to move, and that again is a tribute to you for working collaboratively with them as opposed to working with them in an adversarial manner. So kudos to you for all of the progress you've made and for the steps you've taken to make that happen.
Thank you, Chair Hart. And can I take the opportunity to thank you and the rest of the slate of commissioners and David Meyer for the supportive backing that the staff receives in pursuing safety oversight robustly. That makes a huge difference to know that we have the support of the leadership. So thank you very much for that.
No, thank you. And as they say, it takes a village. So Ms. Samar-Singh, please continue with the next agenda item, which is the audits update.
Thank you, Chair Hart. As mentioned earlier, yesterday we transmitted and published our audit of elevated structure maintenance, inspection, and training. The audit contains 12 findings and 1 recommendation to Vomata. Although Metrorail has taken some positive steps towards improving a structural maintenance and inspection program that faced significant challenges over the past decade, this audit finds that work still remains for Metro to fully implement these steps and that other improvements are needed to address safety issues. Metrorail does not have basic load ratings for its elevated structures to confirm the number or type of trains or size of equipment that can safely traverse the bridges or the elevated stations, which creates a risk that the structures could be inadvertently overloaded. Combined with unduly complex data systems and the long lead time for major structural rehabilitation projects, the lack of load ratings also creates the risk of a significant delay in determining whether a structure is safe for train traffic if an inspector identifies a concern or an event such as a collision with a structure or a significant fire under, over, or near a structure occurs that could impact the load rating. Metrorail recently developed and published its first structural inspections manual, but issued it without any standardized training on the revised policies and procedures for employees who have to implement the manual. Among the reasons departmental leaders cited for delaying training was a need to immediately make changes to the newly issued manual due to concerns identified by different departments and frontline employees. That demonstrates a separate significant ongoing problem facing Metrorail: siloed departments that do not fully coordinate on work instructions, on materials, or procedures. Elevated structures inspections, maintenance, and repair is further complicated by the disparate IT systems used to store inspection, repair, and design data that only individuals, groups, or departments, only some individuals, groups, or departments have full access to. Metrorail also does not have important structural inspection tools available that are listed in the structural inspections manual. Ultrasonic thickness gauges, called D-meters, are needed to assess section loss in steel structures, and dye-penetrant kits should be used to check potential cracks in those structures. These are two examples of tools that are identified in the structures inspection manual that are not available to inspection crews. Other issues identified in this audit include the amount of time available for supervisors to spend in the field, overseeing the large number of inspectors who are relatively new to Vomata, a lack of documentation of some engineering practices, and the need to review the credentials of individual contractors who conduct inspections. This report also includes a repeat recommendation to Metrorail to assess the need to incorporate replacement or mitigation plans for rocker bearings on 10 structures into long-term capital projects on those bridges, given the risk of failure of these bearings in a seismic event. The Tri-State Oversight Committee, or the TOC, issued a similar recommendation in 2010. I would encourage anyone watching today to read the full report to understand the detailed supporting evidence for each of these conclusions and additional background regarding this issue. Metrorail has now 45 days from yesterday's issuance of this report to propose corrective action plans to address each of the 12 findings. Under the Wmsc's program standard, Metrorail is required to consider the recommendation to determine whether a corrective action plan is necessary. As I pointed out, there is one recommendation in this report. Our team continues to work on a number of other audits. Last week, we transmitted the draft roadway maintenance machine audit to Vomata for their 30-day technical review. Roadway maintenance machines are the vehicles that move on the rails but that do not carry passengers. They are work vehicles that are generally powered at Vomata by diesel engines or that are not powered. Much of this audit work was completed on this audit in October, November, and December of last year. Our automatic train control and signaling audit team is in the final stages of its audit work now, after concluding interviews this month. The team is now conducting reviews of the final documents that have been submitted. Our next audit, with interviews scheduled next month, relates to Vomata's fitness for duty programs. This includes drug and alcohol testing, fatigue, medical and physical requirements. Our audits and other oversight work are part of a continuous process to identify ways to improve safety at Metrorail. We audit all aspects of Metrorail's agency safety plan over the course of 3 years. We have already begun planning for several more upcoming audits, including identifying potential areas of interest and building the teams for each audit. That concludes my report on our ongoing audit activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Singha. You certainly are keeping your auditors busy and managing to do so in the midst of the coronavirus to boot. So kudos to you for being able to keep that process going.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Ms. Singha on the audit reports?
I do have a question.
Yes, please, Commissioner Hall.
With regards to the bridges and elevated structures audit, in reading through the report, it was my understanding that an engineering consultant firm to Wmsc provided a list of prioritized projects to take on. To that point, were we, through our audit, able to determine how that consultant prioritized the projects, or what led them to a prioritizing of projects?
Commissioner Hall, I think what you're referring to is not a external contracting firm, but really a working group within Vomata that assembles these lists through various work sessions amongst the various stakeholder departments internally at Metrorail, and then amongst the leadership makes a determination of the prioritized list based on the condition of the assets that they're considering for either rehabilitation or repair or complete replacement. So it's actually an internal group that conducts this work within Metrorail, within Vomata. And our only understanding of the work that was pertaining to that list is understanding that that list also included items and structures that were part of the audit locations that were part of the WMSC's audit work. But aside from that, we do not have understanding on the other metrics that are being used in order to prioritize and select these for progression into capital funding.
Okay, so my point was, I guess, whether it was internal or through an external third party, was there a particular methodology that was used for risk assessment? That was really the key.
Yes, at this time, we do not have an understanding of what those criteria are that they are utilizing to understand the risk assessment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that question, Commissioner Hall. Any other questions from any of the commissioners for Ms. Singha? All right, thank you, Ms. Singha, for that very comprehensive report. We'll now move on to our next agenda item, which is resolutions. Dr. Meyer, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Hart. We do have one procurement resolution for consideration today. It includes an action related to an IT support services contract and an action related to an HR generalist contract, both of which are either currently out for competition or will be very soon. Our procedures require an approval of the commissioners when we estimate spending in excess of $50,000 for procurement in a year, and that is the estimate on both of these procurement actions. So we would ask the commissioners to vote to approve these two procurement actions by passing this resolution.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Is this one resolution because we're talking about a total of $50,000 for two, or is it potential $50,000 for each? And that we actually need, can we do that with one resolution, or do we actually need two?
As has become our practice, we've put both of these separate unrelated procurement actions on one resolution with the anticipation of holding one vote.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Fultz, is that good to go with you?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from any of the commissioners for Dr. Meyer? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt Resolution R 2021-01?
So move.
Mr. Hull, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Rush, I will now ask General Counsel Fultz to conduct a recorded vote.
Thank you very much. Chairman Hart.
Approve.
Commissioner Bob. Thank you. Commissioner Farrar-Dyke.
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Hull.
Approve.
And Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Thank you very much. Resolution R 2021-01 is approved.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fultz. If there is no other business, that concludes our public meeting for today. Before we leave, as a reminder, I'd like to let you know you can always report any concerns through our website, wmsc.gov, through our social media channels like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or by email. We are planning to hold our next public meeting on March 2nd, 2021. The meeting will again be held remotely via video conference. We look forward to seeing you then. So I want to thank the members of the public who attended this. We want to thank Dr. Meyer and his staff for all of the hard work they've put together in all of the investigation reports, the audits, and the other activities we've heard. And I want to thank the commissioners for their, as usual, serious engagement in making this a better product. And last but not least, I want to congratulate once again Victoria Wassner for being designated for the Department of Transportation, and we will certainly miss you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second already. Any objections? Probably not. Thank you again, everyone. The meeting is adjourned.